Joining us now, Sheila Kahyaoglu. She is managing director at Jefferies. We haven't had you on a while, Sheila. Here we go again, though. Another, I don't know if it's, I don't want to characterize it as whack-a-mole, and I don't know whether you blame Boeing for, I've seen some arguments on Twitter. People say you can't blame Boeing, it's a supplier. Other people say, yeah, you definitely can blame Boeing. The supply chain is part of managing Boeing. Whose fault is this?
Well, making a plane with 1 million parts is very difficult, as we could see with supply delays for the simplest widgets out there. So I don't think it's necessarily anybody's fault. What's unfortunate is Boeing is just getting going with hitting the right production rates and is ramping significantly on their max production. So they were at about 25 a month in 2022. The last 2 months, we're tracking the mid to high 30s, which was a really positive data point. So this news is disappointing that they're going to pause deliveries on some variants of the MAX, essentially everything but the MAX 9 at the moment, which is a majority of their MAXs. And the MAX, for perspective, represents about 30% of Boeing's revenues.
So who's in trouble? I mean, when they go to try to find someone, is there a middle management Boeing type that was supposed to be on this, or is it do you find someone besides Spirit? Do you yell at Spirit, or do you just write it off to how complex and difficult it is to make something like a 737 MAX? It's an unbelievable engineering feat, and I understand things happen. That's why we have an expression called Six Sigma, where you try to make sure there aren't any mistakes. But who do you think has to answer to this? Some poor vice president somewhere?
Well, I'm not yelling at anybody, but to put in perspective what the issue is on 1 million parts on a 737 MAX is there's 8 brackets, which are basically nuts and bolts, on the aft fuselage. And there's 3 manufacturers of those brackets that supply to Spirit Aerospace Systems. And 2 of those are not conforming with the standards. So one guy's working out, and the matter of the fix will be, can that guy ramp up production, or can the other 2 suppliers fix it? So from a perspective, Boeing has, a good backup of suppliers on this bracket.
I don't understand why we are defending, or anybody's defending, Boeing. I mean, you can have a supplier. Think about it as a house. If you have a house, you have lots of different subcontractors, and then you have the foreman and the contractor who's supposed to put all of this together. It is ultimately on the foreman and the contractor to make sure it all works. You can say that you have subcontractors who are not doing their job, but that's not, and you can lay blame there. But ultimately, the owner of the house is going to look at the person they hired and say, what happened here?
Andrew, I know we both live in New York City, so there's no way we're chasing contractors because they don't take blame for anything. But I think, to put it in perspective, there's only 2 real global manufacturers of large commercial aircraft, and that's Boeing and Airbus. So it puts in perspective how difficult it is, how the supply chain is stressed. We've known that for months. We've thought that's the biggest risk to ramping production from about 25 in 2022 to 50 aircraft per month in 2025. That's a doubling in 3 years, when the labor force across the U.S. economy, not only engineering and manufacturing, is quite weak. So I'm actually not quick to blame anyone. And I think this is a very defendable situation because it's not a safety of flight issue like we've had in the past. And it's more of an issue of 2 out of 3 suppliers, which is great that they actually have 3 suppliers for something that's a bracket, which is essentially a fastener.